Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 22. You are Trapped in History with me, your host, Robbie Malcomson. Tonight's episode is entitled Unit 1 Renaissance and Exploration Review/Study Guide. Now, this is one of those episodes that's very hyper-focused. I would say if you're a casual listener or someone that's not directly one of my students right now, you may want to skip this episode unless you're just really interested into the content level on there. This one is going to kind of help fill in a gap. I had missed a lot of school recently because of a family emergency with my mother. And we usually like doing these things called Socratic Seminar discussions the day before we have a test. And I usually like to have another day where we kind of break down a study guide together, an overall view of that. So this year, in order to save some of that time, I'm going to have an episode where if my students want to have the study guide with them and then kind of go through this and like listen to me, it can help them. Now, this study guide is not questions at all that are going to be on the test. It's not one of those things where it's a direct mirror of the test. It's basically like a list of topics or terms from the unit, the most important, that could be on our test or it could be on the AP exam later. So I'm going to go chronologically through this study guide, which is not in any way going to follow this the pattern of the last 4 podcasts. So if you want to hear the Renaissance and exploration in much more detail, I would go back a little bit before my latest interview and listen to those handful of episodes that broke down the Italian Renaissance, the Northern Renaissance, the exploration, the slave trade, and then ultimately the connection to the Reformation, which will be Unit 2 that I'm starting on Thursday. So I'm a little bit behind than where a lot of other teachers are at. So maybe you're already teaching Unit 2 or maybe you're about to teach Unit 2. I have those episodes planned out already as well. And I'll be recording those this week as soon as I can and trying to upload those for any listeners as well. So if you're a current student of mine, this is where if you have your study guide in front of you, let's kind of break this down and all that kind of stuff. So at the beginning, you do see where it says Review for Unit 1, Renaissance and Exploration Test, and then there's the themes of the Renaissance at the top of the worksheet. I would go ahead and list out those 8 to 10 themes as much as you can. So at the beginning of the unit, we broke down the isms, right? We had humanism, we had individualism, we had secularism, and then later on we kind of slid in rationalism with that as well too, if you're interested in using that as well. We had the printing press as one of those inventions that we had we had the Columbian Exchange, we had the Atlantic slave trade. We had these like major topics that basically I told you as a student that as long as you have a very good grasp on these 8 to 10 themes, these topics, then no matter what random people they give you on the test or what sources they are, you're more than likely going to do just fine. I would say at least at a B level, if not an A level, if you're putting a lot of effort in, especially on the writing part of this. So this will be the first test that the students have where it's going to have some writing on it as well. So the dates for the Renaissance, we could put the dates for that AP has for the unit, which is 1450 to 1648. So 1450 being roughly the beginning of the Renaissance, and then a 1648, as all of you will see in Unit 2, will be the very end of the 30 Years' War with a treaty called the Peace of Westphalia. Now, I'm also fine if you wanted to extend that to more of like a 1450 to 1600. You can kind of do that in there. I don't know how much the Renaissance was still going into 1648, but obviously, if you want to stick with AP's dates there, go for it. Now, the first topic on the study guide, we do have Machiavelli and the Prince. So we broke this down. There'll be more than likely a source on your first test. So I try to make this first study guide a lot more direct of like what they could expect on the test. So expect a paragraph from Machiavelli. Don't forget that he's like that first one that's a political science kind of a background. He is advocating for future monarchs to basically directing them on how to obtain and maintain power. He spent a lot of time studying past leaders and then learning from them to be able to apply to this. So again, one of his main audience members, intended audience, is the Medici family, and he's trying to get back in the good graces of that after being exiled. So this is one of those things where he's advocating for the use of force if a king or queen needs to be able to do that if necessary. One of his famous lines is, "It is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both of those things." And I'm paraphrasing that. But, he's an excellent person to remember for the future, for continuity and whatnot. I'll bring up our future leaders. Like, for example, when we get to Louis the 14th in Unit 3, I'll ask you all, how Machiavellian do you feel like Louis the 14th is? So Machiavelli will kind of be like a template or like a scale, like a measuring stick that we're going to use to apply to other people as well. Then you guys will see an individual's name, a primary source that we have not covered in class, and I did that on purpose. A guy named Giovanni Pico, and it may say Giovanni Pico della Mirandola next to his name, and being where his geographic location is, and it might just say Giovanni Pico on there. Again, this is one of those famous Renaissance writers, so try to consider those themes of the Renaissance, what the Renaissance is focusing on, a focus on individualism and secular ideas, trying to bring back that ancient Greek and Roman tie back, antiquity, classics, trying to remember those words. So when you see someone new like that, try to look for that whenever you're looking at his writing and you're looking at the questions that are on the test. Look for things that are consistent with the Renaissance, and especially a name like his that sounds quite Italian, you can expect most assuredly some themes from the Italian Renaissance, and kind of remember that whenever you're seeing and approaching his paragraph for the first time. Then expect a focus on humanism, which again is a focus on individualism. It is a rebirth of the classics of antiquity, of ancient Greek and Rome. Again, the father of humanism being Petrarch or Petrarca. This is one of those people that humanism really starting in the Italian Renaissance and then spreading more north and inspiring people later on like Erasmus, who we would consider to be a Christian humanist. Then we have the printing press. The printing press is probably the easiest topic of the chapter. So Gutenberg inventing this in the German states or the Holy Roman Empire at this time. We know that the printing press is spreading ideas rapidly. It's going to have a positive effect on literacy rate in Europe over time. And, this is going to come up again in Unit 2 very heavily because people like Martin Luther and others will rely on the new technology of the printing press to get those ideas out for the Reformation, trying to get the Catholic Church to change what they are doing, even spreading Protestantism later on as well. But the printing press also spreads those Renaissance ideas as well, up from Italy up to north. We eventually see, as we see in the second half of the unit, that we have to attribute that the printing press probably played some kind of role in the beginning of the Age of Exploration, that questioning attitude, that curiosity going forward. So expect that. Now, the way the printing press is, you could expect that as an SAQ on the test. It could be on the multiple choice, could be a little bit of both as well. Then we have a topic that you can only have gotten from your textbook. We didn't really hit on them as heavy out loud in class, and that is the Medici family or the Medici family. You may be asking, who are they? This is a wealthy banking family who were prominent leaders in the city of Florence. As you all may remember or should remember, that Florence is the birthplace of the Italian Renaissance, where a lot of these ideas spread forward to the north as well. They are going to be doing phenomenal things like commissioning art. They will help to construct and commission a sewer system in Florence, as we know is going to be very important whenever you have the latter half of the plague going on here and you're trying to do that. It's going to be a very advanced city, and a lot of other places will view Florence as that birthplace of culture, of this new idea, this rebirth of the culture. Okay, nobles, just knowing in general, nobles are usually wealthy and upper class. They are landowners. Look for visual cue of that they may have like jewelry on. They may have more upper class style clothing going on. But a noble is definitely a landowner. We're getting into that era now where we'll be talking about nobles quite a bit these next couple of units, and until we get to closer to halfway through the year. I would think the last time we talked about nobles is around Christmas time, because we're going to bring them up again in the French Revolution later too. So as far as art goes, we're going to have some visuals on the test. We will have the School of Athens, one that we did not break down in class, but if you look at the painting from Raphael, other than having him, photobombed in himself down there by Ptolemy in the bottom right corner. You can see obviously, this is a painting that has that ancient Greek and Roman themes in there. It has Aristotle and Plato right there in the middle. It has the architecture, the Greek gods, the clothing and whatnot. This is definitely a celebration of antiquity, of the classics, and I think that this is a great representation of that. Michelangelo's David. This is the more masculine version of David. It's also a more idealistic and advanced version of that. We said in class like a better version of what David would have probably looked like in real life. You also have, by comparison, Donatello's David, who looks more feminine, looks smaller. Both of the statues are controversial in terms of how the Catholic Church viewed them, but they're also like praising the individual, right? Because like David is the shepherd boy, he becomes this underdog, this hero. This is a very human related story, a very strong connection, and maybe we wouldn't have seen that as obviously during the Middle Ages. So don't forget to think about Michelangelo as a person and what that represents, and that celebration of individuality, what humans can do. It's another reason why we call Da Vinci the Renaissance man, because he was masterful at many things. A piece of art that we have not looked at, I was just trying to see if you can kind of see that evidence of the Renaissance, is the birth of Venus. So this is a great example of that kind of mystical, but also tied back to ancient Greek and Roman art again as well. Nicholas Copernicus, he belongs more in Unit 4, but like I said, his ideas are right there in the 1500s while the Renaissance and the Reformation are going on. Try to see if you can find some connections there on how humanism and individualism and this new era of the Renaissance could influence someone like Nicholas Copernicus. And when we get to the Age of Enlightenment, which is this new wave of philosophical ideas and scientific ideas that we will see in Unit 4 later on. And we'll see that with names in the 1600s like Galileo and Kepler and Newton, people like that. So Copernicus is a great place to start at for science for the rest of the year, but also it's a great way to tie in, hey, here's someone from Unit 4 and how they relate to Unit 1. And remember, AP will kind of test you on that as you go forward. Number 11 on the study guide, how the Black Death impacted the Catholic Church. Looking at this more like, remember that anybody was susceptible to dying during the bubonic plague, because it didn't matter what status you were socioeconomically, anyone could die. And also, whenever something like this is going on, some superstitious people maybe view it as a punishment from God. Some are wondering, why is the church not doing more to stop the plague? Basically, people becoming more critical of the church and medicine, because it just seemed like a lot of other options were not working. But at the same time, the church was doing, charitable things too, like opening up monasteries for people to be able to get help at too. So it's not for a lack of trying, but it definitely damaged the prestige of the church. And it's not going to help whenever we get into Unit 2 and we see that kind of corrupt, unethical behavior going on that Martin Luther and others will call out as well. So expect to definitely delve more into religion heavily in the next unit, even though the next unit is the exact same time frame that we're doing here. So what were the dates of the European exploration? You can kind of keep the exact same dates. I mean, you can also just do, like 1492 if you want to do Columbus. You can think of like the Portuguese and going around Africa. But I think sticking with the unit dates is fine. So 1450 to 1648. We also have on number 12, conquistadors. These are soldiers of God. These are Spanish explorers. The main two that you need to know that go together, which is perfect for 12 and 13 to be close to each other, is Hernan Cortez and Francisco Pizarro, who come after Columbus discovering the New World. I would not consider Columbus a conquistador, but make sure you know that 12, 13, and 14, 15 here, these all go together. Hernan Cortez will be landing in today is Mexico, and discovering the Aztec Empire, leading to the destruction of that, enslaving of the people for hard labor. Francisco Pizarro, you had to get more information from him from the textbook. Him landing in what's modern day Peru, up there and then or down there, and then being able to conquer them, also use them for labor as well. And this is just going to set off a chain of events in which the Spanish Empire grows extensively. And we can go all the way down to Chile, all the way up to Southern California on there too. It's a massive colonial empire that they will have. Don't forget the connection to the Treaty of Tordesillas to prevent further conflict with the Portuguese. They will not conquer Brazil. That's why another reason why Brazilians today speak Portuguese. Portugal will be focusing on Brazil and what they find east of that, mainly setting up that trading post empire in Western Africa along the coastline as well. Now, the Spanish motivations for exploration, I would say, were motivations for also all of the other empires, were the three G's: God, gold, and glory. God being the spread of Christianity, glory finding wealth, mercantilism. These are those ideas of trying to find as much wealth as you can to become the most powerful nation there in Europe. You also have glory. You have the personal glory of the explorers, becoming like heroes and rock stars. You also have just the national glory too, the nationalism of these nation states competing against each other as well over exploration. Now, in number 16, we transition over to the Portuguese. So Vasco da Gama's journey to India. He avoids dealing with the Ottomans and the Mongols anymore on the Silk Road. Instead of dealing with the Silk Road and on land trade, they go around Africa. Remember, Diaz lands in South African tip. And then later on, Da Gama will go around that, go all the way to India to set up trade. This will be very, very profitable for Portugal with their trade with India from this point on, getting rid of the middleman of the operation like the Ottomans and other people like that. And Da Gama will become a national hero for this as well. And then later on, obviously, we're going to see India change hands a lot with other nations fighting over in that area in Southeast Asia. 17, we talked a little bit about new navigational technology for exploration, that being things like the astrolabe, the compass, triangular-shaped sails, rudders that are on the back of ships. If you combine all these new technologies together with this questioning attitude gained from the Renaissance, we have that not just a motivation to explore, but the ability now to explore way further beyond the horizon as well. We have Bartolomé de las Casas on number 18. We've already done an assignment on him. We broke down a paragraph from him. He was that Spanish friar. He had lived since he was a teenager over in the Americas, had viewed a lot of the abuse happening to the indigenous people. So expect him to write more critical about Spain, critiquing their treatment of indigenous people there as well too. So it could be violence, could be a mixture of diseases. So remember him, who he was, why his point of view matters, what's maybe his purpose or his intent with what he's doing as well. Then we get to number 19. We get the leader of the Aztec Empire, and we get Spanish missionaries. So expect a news source, kind of comparing how basically like what Spanish missionaries were doing, trying to spread religion there, and then also their relationship with the Aztecs and their leader. Based on the text, you have to determine, what view do the missionaries have of the Aztecs? Are they like the conquistadors? Are they more critical what the conquistadors are doing? Try to look for those emotional themes and that rhetoric, that nuance and complexity that might be involved with that document. I have to say that I think that document on number 19 there, and maybe see here, maybe Giovanni Pico's document. These are the ones that I try to throw some names in there that you haven't seen before, some sources like that, because the AP exam will be very, very much like that as we go forward. But I try to make the preparation for this first test a little bit easier because of what I've gone through. I've missed 5 or 6 days of school right in the middle of this unit, so this is kind of crazy. So some of you that are teachers that might be listening, if you've stayed this long, you might be thinking that this is too easy. Like I'm setting them up. I'm not getting them ready for the difficulty of the exam, but I'm kind of slowing them. I'm easing them into that, and things have gone pretty well this year. I'm not going to go over the discussion questions section because by the time many of you listen to this, we will have already had the Socratic Seminar. So I have 6 debate questions. I may trim these down to 3. My two AP classes tomorrow will do their first Socratic Seminar, in which we're going to try to at least debate about one question about the Renaissance and debate about one of exploration with a word bank, with the study guide with them, with their notes. Try to incorporate as many words, people, places, terminology into that debate as you can, because if you do that tomorrow as a student, then that's going to help you out the most by far, because it means that if you're doing that passionately out loud and aggressively, then you know it, you get it, and then it's just focusing on the test, on what you know, and leaving the time limit out of your head, your test anxiety of your head. Just be confident that I know these topics really well, and I'm going to use my skills now to figure this out. I have a couple of SAQ practice ones on the end of the study guide. These are not ones that you have to answer, but I mainly put them there just for you to get used to kind of seeing how they're worded. So I just want to break down one of them. So that first one, when we break down really the differences between Italian Renaissance art and the art of the Protestant Reformation. Now, when it says the art of the Protestant Reformation, it's saying Northern Renaissance art. So it's comparing those two together. I have a chart down there at the bottom, but it's mainly for looking at how they're worded. If you notice, it says describe one significant cultural or intellectual change during the Renaissance for A. On B, explain one cause of cultural or intellectual change during the Renaissance. Now, this is why we do notes that it's called Pirate's note-taking system, because AP will do this often. They'll ask you, what's the political of this, the technological impact of that, the social impact of that, the artistic thing of that. If we go through the units and categorize the facts and the information that we need by the category, then whenever a certain short essay comes up or a long one, you're prepared in your head. You kind of know. You chunk it together, because remember, we have 9 times to do this year in 9 units. You want to be able to chunk these things together, and it may cause your use of continuity and change to be easier over time, just like you can bring up the printing presses effect, not only on the Renaissance, but also on the Reformation. So it has a dramatic effect from that 1450 to 1648 area. So I hope that I wanted this podcast to be a little shorter again. So 22 minutes. I'm not sure if I'm going to post this on YouTube or not, just because I know a lot of you will listen to it on Spotify or Apple. I'll see how the class feels tomorrow. If the class wants me to post it on YouTube, I can easily do that after school. But most of you will probably, because I won't have a visual component anyway. But anyway, this is not a traditional review of Unit 1 for if you're a teacher, because I went off my own study guide. Your test may look a lot different with that. I suggest to go back and listen to those 4 episodes that are between 25 and 30 minutes long, where I very much detailed break down this entire Unit 1. And then I'm going to start working on Unit 2's podcast and getting those recorded, because the agendas are made. I just got to have to verbally record them. And then if you're a teacher, you can listen to it. If you're interested in history and you're just an enthusiast, you can go after it. And if you're a student, hopefully it helps you as well too. I also use the Heimler videos on YouTube to help. The students really like him. I respect him a lot. And yeah, that's it. So hopefully this podcast helps for anybody that really wanted to go through the study guide, even if it's just one of you that ends up doing it. I'm going to give all of you that are my students this paper version tomorrow. After school, you can choose to listen to this and follow through that if you want to write on it, just to help you, kind of like a flashcard way of studying, so you're not just only going through your notes or one of the former assignments that we had. So I hope that you all have a great rest of the week. As always, be contagious.